Caring for someone with dementia is a journey which is very different for each individual. It can be a smooth or turbulent journey.
Yeah, I was part of her world. I had to be, because she wasn't mine. That had all gone.
Because it didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process.
You tend to learn to live for the present. You enjoy the present. You enjoy what you can do with her.
You are completely alone. They can't speak, they can't walk. They sometimes don't recognise or even smile at you.
I don't want to go home. I don't want to be there. I don't want to care anymore.
The caring experience of dementia differs from other forms of caring. I'm going to speak to several people who will each talk about aspects of their caring lives with you. I've come to visit Peter, who cares for his partner Brian at their lovely house and garden in Charlbury.
It's lovely.
Brian had a lot of interests, and one of his main hobbies was to travel to the Himalayas, and he'd go on trekking trips, and he'd come back with a huge number of photographs, and for the next year he would spend his time putting them in albums and writing stories about the trip and communicating with his fellow travellers. And to this day he's got a huge number of leather-bound photograph albums with all this recorded.
There is a hill on which the four winds blow, sweet honeysuckle and cow parsley grow, purple clover, summer warmed by sunset's glow, drifting wild perfumes to the town below.
It started very slowly with a loss of his ability to find the words, the last word on any sentence. And eventually, after lots of requests by him, he was still able to speak then, he went to the doctor, and I was present, and the doctor said, do you know what you've got? And poor Brian's looked like a lamb at the slaughter. No idea. Oh, you've got Alzheimer's. I thought it was without lacking in sensitivity. It was like a bombshell.
My wife's name is Sandy, and I've been a carer and looking after her for about 8 years. Before we had the diagnosis that Sandy had Alzheimer's, I knew there were problems but didn't recognise them or understand what the problems were. But it wasn't until we went away on holiday together that I suddenly noticed that she thought there were people in the house. She thought our children were with us. She thought that when we went out we were on a treasure hunt. She thought that she had helped build a lot of the villas that we saw in Mallorca, and we'd only been to that island for the first time.
I was married for 47 years. Well, I didn't really know there was anything wrong for a little while, as she started seeing things like things at the bottom of the bed that weren't there, and asking me to actually get rid of them, you know, and I used to have to open the window at night and make believe I was shooing them out, and without really knowing what I was doing or what it was all about. And then the doctor then said she thought it was Alzheimer's, but without being really sure herself. So we did need further tests, which included blood tests at the old Radcliffe Hospital and a brain scan, and then it was confirmed that it was Alzheimer's.
The diagnosis of my husband's was a good 30 years ago with Behçet's disease. He was the only case at the old Radcliffe Oxford for 47 years, and it stumped a lot of them. And along with Behçet's has come dementia. To start off with, he left small notes lying around the place, and they gradually began to increase in number. He would lock me in. He would lock the doors. He would lock the windows. To start off with, when he'd gone out, I would throw them all wide open again.
As we continue our journey, I'd like you to meet Meg, whose experience, once again, is very different.
I felt rather isolated to begin with because friends find it difficult to cope with something like this. They don't know how to take it. They don't quite understand when someone they've known all their life doesn't recognise them. I had to make decisions about him as well as myself. I had to decide whether he had drugs. I had to decide whether he went for respite. I had to decide whether he needed extra help, or I had to decide what we did financially. I had to decide everything, and I was alone. This is how it is, and this is how it continues with someone who has dementia, until you are completely alone. They can't speak, they can't walk. They sometimes don't recognise or even smile at you. So it's a very, very long, hard road. But I think it's important to say that carers of people with dementia are very special in their needs. If you care for someone who is sick, you sometimes have the pleasure of having their company, even if they are sick. When you care for someone with dementia, they leave you bit by bit, and you're alone.
The long-term effects of caring for someone with dementia can be particularly traumatic and made even more difficult when accompanied by physical disability.
When I was expecting our son, he was blind. We was in the army. And that was very difficult because I was down there on my own and I knew no one. And my husband was going to go blind. He doesn't even know whether he's eaten or not. He don't know what day of the week it is. A telephone number, a postal code. But silly things like that, day after day after day. Several times a day. I gave up work almost 6 years ago because I couldn't handle my work, part-time work, as well as worrying of what he was doing at home. Okay, I'm miserable, I cry oceans. But he doesn't want to see or reason of why they say when you cry alone, and by God I have done that. Now there is nothing left. There is no love. There has been no love for many years because I've been a carer or a mother or a nurse, teacher, I don't know. I've been all of those roles. And then I've lost myself. And this time I know I cannot cope. I cannot give any more now. Everything has gone. I am just empty.
The specialist just told us, without any preamble, without asking me in first or anything, that Sandy probably had Alzheimer's. And his next question was, any questions? Needless to say, we didn't have any because we couldn't think of anything to say. Came home in silence, and we've never spoken about it since. I never mentioned it to Sandy, and she never mentioned it to me. I felt that if she didn't want to talk about it, I wouldn't. And we were then left on our own. We had nothing from the hospital. We had nothing from the doctor for what seemed like months.
They just told me it was Alzheimer's. I took her home and just carried on. Well, just looking after her full time then, of course. Because one Saturday, where we used to go out every Saturday morning shopping and that, we got back. And she just suddenly said, I can't walk. And of course, since then I've realised she may have just forgot how to walk. And well, that was when it was really, I started caring for her 24 hours a day, which I didn't mind.
Well, what I wanted was somebody to talk to, somebody that perhaps had been in a similar situation, and somebody who was positive, because I would meet the prophets of gloom occasionally who would say, what's wrong? And we'd say what it was. And, oh, yes, well, wait in another 6 months, sort of. And we didn't want to hear that. Because there's lots of positive things that can happen and have happened.
She went downhill fairly quickly in the first 6 or 9 months. because she stopped driving and I managed to sell her car. I had to then take early retirement in about the February of '98 because she was phoning up work about 8 or 10 times a day.
We was all young, full of hopes, dreams, and with the second marriage, what do you expect? More than the first. But it wasn't to be. I didn't know how to handle it. I had no help from anyone.
I've learned a lot more about the Alzheimer's, since she died than I knew at the time. Maybe that's partly my fault. I didn't ask for help. I didn't know what to do, to be honest. I just thought it was my job to, well, not my job, it's just I loved her that much. I wanted to care for her.
I suppose I felt I was young, I'd retired early, I could cope, and in fact I could cope.
Having someone in to, well, help me in the morning, get her ready, washed and ready. At night as well, having someone that helped her get to bed, because I struggled on my own. And as you can see, I'm not a young chap. And I had a couple of heart attacks before that. But I thought I was managing. Well, I was managing. And but I wish now that I had got someone in earlier, to take a bit of the strain away, because it is a strain.
The first real help we got was from the Clive Project, which is a charity for young Alzheimer's. And they gave us 3 hours a week when a carer came to the house to take Sandy out, which gave me a chance of doing what I wanted to and have some time on my own. And that really was the first time that I realised that I needed help. But I have to say that in the last few years, with the appointment of CPNs, with care managers, with social services managers, things have dramatically improved, and we've had a lot of help and care and support from all the bodies. But when we were first diagnosed, there was absolutely nothing.
I did have a carer come from Bullingdon Road, where the carer centre is, and she came a couple of times, but Val was a bit, well, I don't know if she was jealous or what she was. She just asked who this woman was, and as she said, is this one of your women, But, at the time, well, the lady took it very well, of course. She just, said, it's all right, I'll go,
We were often encouraged to take respite, but it's a very, very big step. I knew I had to go into hospital to have a serious operation, and I was out of action for 5 weeks. So something had to be done. We hadn't any carers at that time who could do any lengths of care, so we had to use respite. We tried a week at a local residential home, and Sandy lasted there for half an hour. The home wasn't a specialist Alzheimer's home, it was a nursing home. I said to them, can I take Sandy just for the day? Oh, no, perfectly right, we'll have her for the week. Well, I got there, I unpacked her case, and within half an hour, the matron had come up and said, I'm very sorry, we can't look after Sandy. She's too noisy, she's too in the face of all the other patients. She was slightly physical, not violent, but looked as though she might. And she was causing mayhem with all the residents of the nursing home.
He's very much somebody that's got to have a one-to-one relationship, and he was surrounded by lots of people, a lot older, and he was very confused, and in fact they asked us to take him back. He was too stressed by it.
I had to look not just for respite care, I had to look for full-time care. I didn't know it was time, but I was told by the specialist that it was time for me to look, and I did look. I couldn't bear for him to be very far away from me. I found a home in the village, and they were very good and kind to him. But I knew when I took him from the door that he would never come out again. And he didn't.
It is very difficult. I really acquaint it to like a mother that leaves their toddler for the first time at a toddler group, and the mother is convinced that the carers can't look after their child as well as they can. And talking to my two daughters, it's exactly the same, and you feel guilty, you feel you've let your wife down, and yet it works. It doesn't get any easier. I've just had respite a fortnight ago, and Sandy actually now enjoys respite.
They sometimes don't recognise or even smile at you. So it's a very, very long, hard road, and care is so, so important for the carer. There is no companionship. There is no marriage. My husband had Alzheimer's when he was 65. He was diagnosed. I'm 11 years younger than he was. So at the age of 54, my married life finished. The loving, caring man that I'd always known was still there, but not holding my arm any longer. He was holding my hand. He became a child again. And that is the real, real hard part for anybody to cope with. So support in every way is important. Support from other people who have the same problem. Support from CPN, support from Alzheimer's Society. Support in every way, and it's so important that when carers are told that something is going to happen, someone is going to phone, something is going to happen to help them, that it does.
You are a full-time carer doing a job, and a job that's necessary. Life is what you make of it, and you enjoy every moment. You enjoy when the sun comes out. You enjoy when you go out. And by that way, you can actually live life and have a satisfactory life, although totally different from what you expected it to be. But it's fulfilling, and you're doing some good because you're looking after your wife.
This illness, I've discovered through talking to people, is different for every person. And then we know quite a lot of people now, and no two cases are exactly the same.
I don't want to go home. I don't want to be there. I don't want to care anymore.
Are you at all worried about him, even though you have those feelings?
He's there at home on his own while I'm here. I am concerned, but after so many years of caring, it's just trained thought. There is no love, and there is no guilt, because there's nothing left. My life is just zero at the moment. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know which direction I'm going in, but I've got to find it. With all the help I get, then I know that I can do something. I can't look after my husband anymore, and now it's up to someone else. I've done my bit. I've just got to give in. I cannot do it anymore.
I thought, well, Norman, you can either jump in the river to end it all, or make a life. And, well, I have made a life. I've gone back to work again, just for a couple of hours a day. Got very involved with the Alzheimer's Society, fundraising and on the main committee.
And then the Alzheimer's Society, they came into my life as well, and things took off. I was a person. With the help, the encouragement, it was brilliant. I could find me. I learned to belly dance. I went to art classes. I started to drive again after 16 years. And I was actually had a life, which was, it was ace. That's something that I hadn't had for so many years. And friends, new friends. And that is also very special.
We now have a GP that we're really happy with. She's very supportive, she's very understanding, and she's very thorough. She always comes back and explains things to us, and she's always there when we need her. So we're very, very fortunate, and we're grateful for that. Very grateful.
I've stood upon this windswept hill, So many, many times until with closed eyes I see at will the memories that are with me still.
Well, we all hope to go on and on and on, you know, but never forgetting Bar, of course, and never will. I go to her, well, she was cremated and I put her ashes in the grave with her mother and father. I go every week with fresh flowers. Don't miss at all. Ever talk to her? Still talk to her in the flat. You know, I say, oh, you like, if I'm cooking dinner, I say, oh, you like this, well, you know, and different things like that, and music I play that we both liked, which makes me cry.
We hope to avoid him going into full-time care because he knows his place, he knows us. He's certainly happy here. He's very happy here, as happy as he can be with his illness. I mean, the happy moments are really terrific. I mean, sometimes he has us laughing, the things he'll come out with, and the body language he'll indicate if he thinks somebody is particularly humorous or perhaps even unpleasant. We can read it in his face with the raised eyebrows and the facial expressions. So our hope is to keep him here where he's happiest.